Alright, hey everyone. This is going to be the grading video for Design 3301, Lesson 19. In this particular assignment, you guys were using photo underlays in Sketchbook Pro to redesign an existing soft good object. What I'm looking for here are 2 pages of like detail iteration on top of existing photo underlays. In particular, I'm looking to see if you completed the assignment and communicated various design iterations on top of your photo underlay. So to start off, we've got Gabby looking at, it looks like a baby sling, which is pretty cool. I'm going to turn off a few of these layers here and see if we can see your underlay. So there's the underlay. Great. It looks like you've got some line work and a bunch of notes and some shading on each layer. I like that you've included a title, so that's great too. So I'm going to turn off your underlay, take a quick look inside at your layer structure in here as well. So it looks like you've got a couple, let me see. Just checking your structure here, looks like we've got an undersketch using some light gray and dark gray, which is kind of nice, kind of feeling out those proportions maybe. And then on top of that, a little bit more detailed line work on top of everything. Okay, cool. So all in all, it looks like we've got some great reference for scale with the baby and the mom in place. I like how minimal you've kept that. And it also looks like in our 3 concepts, we've got one with like a padded neck. This one has more of like a shoulder strap. This one has some built-in white noise speakers. I don't know if that's for the mom or for the baby. Some folding areas. This one supports the baby's head. Maybe this one looks a little bit thicker. So the callouts that you're using on these different concept variations are very helpful for me to see what it is you were thinking through. This one has an integrated jacket, nice touch, breathable fabric, and extra foam for support. So your intent here behind each of these concepts is great. I like that you've sort of identified some key areas on each one and called out the differences between your designs. I think maybe one thing that is missing in this set is just some sort of semblance of like texture. Well, I guess you have a little bit of that on the speakers, but if we look at your original photo reference again, and let me just bring this up to the top, we've got some really cool textures in soft goods that can really make a difference when you include that in your sketches here. Even if it's just in small areas, to give an impression of what materials you're suggesting for something like this that would hold a baby. Another few important things, few important details that would be nice to see are some of these like clip and snap areas. It kind of shows how this thing might be adjustable and might be easy to take on or put on or take off. That might be kind of missing in this too. But overall, those details I think would be easier to add in sort of a next round of iteration. So let's take a look at your other concepts. All right, looks like a camping chair. I like the inclusion of a brand. Let's take a quick look at the existing camping chair. Sometimes it's nice to include the existing chair somewhere on the page so that we can kind of see what it was that you were redesigning here, even if it's small. Okay, so there's our camping chair. The drop shadow is helping set these sketches off from the main page. And I see 3 very different chairs here. Again, I think your callouts are very appropriate here, calling out sort of the differences between these. There's a flexible folding foam in the lumbar region versus like a small head pad and foam around the edges. That's very appropriate. Your perspective is nice and consistent, although I would say It might be nice, which is which here, it might be nice to keep these maybe a little bit more regularly aligned to give us a better idea of how the scale stacks up for each one of these. Again, small change here, if you can get them aligned, I think it'll help with comparison. In general here on this one too, your line work is kind of loose. Loose is fine, but I think maybe on this shape, it looks, I'm not sure everything here looks quite intentional. It maybe gets a little bit off with how this contour line sort of flows through here. Make sure your lines are exactly the way you want them before you go ahead with shading. I do like the dramatic light work you have going on here too. It's easy to tell that these objects are sort of scooped out, and your contour lines you're using are pretty nice here. So another thing that might be missing in this set too, again because we're talking soft goods, is some indication of texture, or maybe even a few more notes about like what type of material. Another thing that can work is if you call out, like, if you can find the material online somewhere and put it into this little call out, and then you can say like, that's this material, this dark gray material is this other swatch that I found that is a little bit more like, I don't know, this other kind of pattern. That's another kind of effective way of indicating material if you don't feel confident, or if you'd rather not spend the time to kind of like put the material actually behind one of these layers. So just a hint for you on that stuff. Overall, nice notes, nice design intent, and I think although the sketching style may be a little bit loose, these feel maybe a little bit more like thumbnails than like design direction, like final design direction sketches. I think your intent is coming through. So nice job, Gabby. All right, we'll go to the next person here. I'm gonna make a note that I saw your stuff, Gabby. Okay, so Kennedy, you're up. I'm going to try, I might move through these a little bit more quickly because I know there's a lot more sketching that I'd like to take a look at. Kennedy, we sort of saw yours and commented on them in class, so I'll be maybe a little more brief here. Same thing, like try to organize your shoes into like a single line, give us an easier chance at comparing like the height of all three of these. I think in general, when you were talking about these, we're seeing like three very different variations on a similar sole size, and I really appreciate that. This like shiny leather as a nice contrast to this like rubber oversole kind of thing. I'm not even sure if that's what you would call it. Their callouts are on point as well. I do think you could benefit from maybe sticking just a little bit more highlight on the top of this shoe. These guys have a highlight, and the way the highlight looks, it makes them seem a little bit shinier. If this is supposed to be matte, it's fine to add just like a gentle, sort of a gentle highlight. Let me find like a nice big brush. Make this really big. And it wouldn't take much to, oh man, you get these settings all together here too. So kind of add a little bit more dimensionality to this shoe. I might even reduce the opacity a little bit, just to give it a little bit more like roundness in that area. Oh, no, that doesn't do it. Anyway, you get the idea. You could erase in here too, next to these like ridges, to make them sort of stand out a little bit more as well. So, all right, let's take a look at your next one. Open now. Right, the bags. So we took a look at this one in class too. Your orientation of your views makes a little more sense to me. In this case, I think we were talking about like variation, identifying key components of each object, and then making sure you provide a variation for each one of your design directions. Microcores, I like the title. Microcores, what? Handbags. It might be nice to see maybe a hand or some common object somewhere on your page to give us a sense of scale, like how big is this bag. But yeah, you've got handle, 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 3 different design directions, awesome. Strap, strap, and no strap, I guess that's fine too. 3 different directions. Feet, feet, and no feet. It might be worth calling out what's on the bottom, maybe the material on the bottom or something, to show us that there are 3 different solutions for like setting this bag on a surface. And we talked about your texture here. That's pretty nice too. Because we're changing the geometry so much, keeping a consistent texture in this case is working pretty well. Another thing that might help, and I guess I can probably try to add this really quick, is to maybe to ground your objects with a drop shadow of some kind. I might actually use like a darker brown version of what you're already using. Let's see. Even something just to kind of make it feel like these objects are sitting on the same plane. And you might want to slightly rearrange these so that all of the like the ground areas kind of line up. So like shift this object up just a little bit, this one up to match this first one here. Your vignette is also a nice touch to kind of tie these concepts together. However, this might also be a good opportunity to add a color in the background, maybe a slightly contrasting color, or even just like a light gray to, oops, that's not what I'm looking for. Give me like, just like my fill brush. Weird. That's fine. Just to add a little bit of like dimensionality to your page. You got a vignette. If you want it to stay subtle, that's fine, but giving it a little bit of color I think will help make those objects sort of be anchored more in space. So overall, your line work looks pretty good too. It is pretty minimal, like not super dynamic, and that's fine. Another thing that maybe you would benefit from adding are, like, I see it sort of a cast shadow underneath this strap, but it would be nice to see one. Yeah, and I might use that same like dark brown color here. It'd be nice to see one like behind this strap here, just to make this seem maybe a little bit more, give it just a little bit more dimensionality. All right. Overall, though, nice job, Kennedy. I think your design intent is coming through very strongly. All right, I think next up we have Amber. All right, wow. Lots of notes on this guy. So we've got a couple backpacks, and it looks like, I like, Amber, that you left your underlays labeled and kind of put up in the top here. We've got 2 underlays and a reference image. For this kind of exploration, I think I'd rather have you guys use sort of the exact same perspective view for each variation, just so that it's a more regular thing. So like if this bag and this bag are on the same underlay, this should probably be on the same underlay too. We're trying to focus on details and not necessarily different perspectives in this particular assignment. So All right, overall, I like to see little bits of color here. In this case, we're calling out strap differences, so that's great. Your drop shadow is fine. It's kind of setting these objects off, anchoring them in the ground. It might be cool to see one of these bags like on an outlined person, kind of like we saw in Gabby's sketches. Overall, I think from a design intent standpoint, like 3 completely different ways to open and close the top. I see like different pockets on the outside, quick access zipper, another pocket. So I'm seeing a variety of different zippers and pockets on these bags, and that they look like they could be variations of the same bag. Nice job with that. The handles are all very similar. That's fine. I do like that you changed the color on these guys. Maybe show me a third option over here. Another area of the bag that's really important is like the bottom of the bag. It might have been cool to include maybe some different feet or like a wrap around the bottom of the bag in a different material, or just in general even some material reference to like the type of fabric you might use here, whether you use it sort of as an underlay and show me texture on the actual sketch, or like you call out. Let me go back to like a black. Again, there's not a ton of room on your page anymore, and it's great that you fill it up with the sketches and notes, but you can put like a little splotch of material and say like, oh, that's what I imagined for here, that's what I imagined for here, that kind of thing. Yeah, overall these are really nice, and I know you're sort of focusing on like the general breakup of the pockets and stuff, so I'm not super worried about like details like the buckles and zippers. You've indicated that they are a little bit different from bag to bag, so nice job with this, Amber. Let's take a look at your other one. All right, we got some gloves. It's a great choice for soft goods. These sketches feel a little bit more loose than the other page. Maybe it's just like the line work being a little bit thicker and not quite as tight. I guess that's fine. This orientation, the underlay you picked is really cool because we get to see some finger grip details too. And gloves are one of those cool things where you don't really need a scale reference because it looks like a hand and everyone knows what the size of a hand is. In this case, choosing the same color for each of them is great. We can focus on just different detail location. This sort of like light blue you've chosen sort of highlights some of these different things. Again, identifying like the major areas of this glove to iterate on. The wrist area is different on each. Like the back of the glove is different on each. One has a pocket. We've got like finger details different on each. So yeah, overall nice. I like that this detail kind of wraps around to the other side. That's a nice touch. I like that you're including brand application or an indication of that. So yeah, this is another really good page, Amber. Also, I appreciate the title, Detail Iteration 2 Gloves. That's what we're looking at, and reference on the page. Overall, I think these are really strong pages, Amber. Your shading style is very efficient. These don't look like very final sketches, and I don't want to mean that as a critique, but depending on where you're at in the design process, in this case, maybe you could spend or do like one more pass, throwing in some highlights like on the top edges of these gloves, on some of the seams perhaps, or like go back through and add a few indications of like the texture of this material, because a lot of the main big ideas about this glove are kind of finished. But yeah, overall this is what I was looking for. So nice job with this. Okay, I think Casey's up next. All right, Casey, doing some shoes. Let's see if we can find your underlay. And again, I would say if there's a way for you to stick one of these underlays, or like one small version of whatever your underlay is, on your page somewhere so we can see what it is you're redesigning, that'd be a great reference. Like, I don't know, maybe it belongs down here. One of the things, same thing I sort of told Kennedy, was if you can find a way to orient these shoes in a more regular fashion across the page, I think it's going to make it easier for us to see. At least yours are all kind of the same scale. That's nice. One thing I've noticed we're missing right off the bat are some notes. If you look at some of the previous, actually all three of the previous, like Gabby, Kennedy, and Amber, all included a lot of great notes about things like their design choices, like call out that is a buckle versus a, I don't know, like elastic strap versus a zipper. I know that it's on your drawing, but those kinds of details are appropriate to call out as well. Another thing I notice here, we have the exact same color and same sole, and even like the same breakup of the back of the shoe, and even kind of the tongue. I guess this tongue is a little bit different than these other two, but I feel like there are a couple details here that you could have iterated on a little bit further. If you want to keep the same color, that's fine. It might be nice to show us a swatch of like what the material actually is, if it's leather or something like that, or find a way to actually, because this is digital, use that leather as a like a light layer to add that texture to these. And then definitely it would have been nice to see some variation on the back, like the heel of the shoe, like maybe one of these has a strap, maybe one of these is a different kind of fabric or breakup back here. The sole of the shoe is definitely something I'd like to see some more detail on. Like maybe one of these shoes has some like different kind of grip on the bottom, or has like a logo application that's a little bit different, or even like the sole like comes up and around the back of one of these. Just give me a few more variations here, so when we are actually selecting one of these concepts, we can kind of pick and choose the things that we like. All right, let's check out your other one. So let's go to 2. Okay, we have some more bags. Cool, just like Kennedy. Kate Spade handbag. Again, this is not something we talked about beforehand, but if you are redesigning an existing object, sometimes it's nice to have that object somewhere on the page as a reference for those of us who don't know what it is you're redesigning. I'm just going to throw it here for now so we can see. Okay, on this set, kind of the same thing as the last one. I don't know that we kind of push the variation far enough in some of these other elements. So the breakup of color on the main body of the bag is great. This one has a pocket. This is like a different bottom maybe area for how it rests on the ground. This one has this like button kind of thing. Oh, I'm drawing on a layer you can't see. Like, yeah, what is that? It would be nice to see some notes about that. Like, oh, there's a zipper pocket, etc. And then the handles, definitely this would be another great opportunity for you to show me 3 different types of handles, and maybe 3 different ways to attach the handle to the bag. So just push it a little bit further, Casey, but what you have so far looks pretty good too. So. All right, so we're going to move on to the next person, which I believe is Carly. All right, Carly, some more shoes. Cool to see these. I know we haven't really talked about how to draw a shoe. I'm glad that you guys are starting to approach some of the topics that you wanted to draw with this like photo underlay project. first of all, I guess your page looks a little bit chaotic. It'd be nice. It's good to have a title. Maybe spend a little bit more time thinking about the layout of your page. It'd be nice to have these shoes sort of lined up in a nice even row. Your notes are readable, but maybe just slightly big for this presentation. And like your vignette too, I try to keep these lines like really nice and straight. Especially when you have a tool that lets you do like a perfectly straight line. There's no reason for it to be wavy, unless it's like super intentionally so. All right, so let's take a look at your existing shoe really quick. There it is, I think. Yeah, there we go. Okay, I've been saying this to other people too. See if you can find a way to put your original shoe that you're redesigning somewhere on the page for these, just so we can see sort of where you started. Man, overall, like rendering style, you're kind of where I was looking for everyone to be. Not only do we have like different colors on here, but I'm seeing some great shading to show me like this top of the shoe really rolls to the side. We got shadow on the side. Some of your edges between these fabric pieces are highlighted. That's really important in soft goods because you do need to kind of show the order in which fabric is assembled. It might be nice to see some like stitching here too that can really emphasize like the assembly method of this product. Plus, stitching is something that soft goods designers really pay attention to as well. It's nice to see you paying attention to some color, but it would also be nice to see, like on this Puma shoe that you have as reference, there's some really specific texture on here. To see some of that texture come through in your variations, or put a swatch somewhere. Man, give me a layer where I can see here. Why isn't it? Oh, because I'm drawing in white, that's why. You could even like put a swatch and say, yep, that's the material I'm imagining here, and this material is what I'm imagining here. All right, design intent. I see 3 very different versions of the shoe, like a super low top, more of a sneaker style and more of a boot style. Different laces here, that's really cool. These two are pretty similar, but I think that's all right because we're really changing up like the style of shoe here. Another thing that these Pumas have is this like cool texture on the sole or like the edge of the sole. Again, I'm not an expert in what the name of that part of the shoe is, but it might be cool to see some indications of what you would suggest here, and is it different on this one, or is it plain, or does it have like some other texture, maybe something that like rides up the front. Anyway, that was, I guess, one little area that you could iterate on a little bit more. Overall, though, like nice design intent here and good rendering style. All right, Carly, your second one. Yay, okay, so in terms of like page organization, this one's much better. Much easier to see and compare these different bags. I would like to see the bags maybe a little bit bigger and your notes maybe a little bit smaller. Just a small thing. Nice vignette. It's, you know, it ties everything together, but it's not distracting. And nice color variations on this too. Yeah, this is a nice set. These look like they're kind of exploring colors and materials as well as like different pockets and buckle styles. So, and because you sort of went there with the materials, it's cool to see these, like that's more of a woven. This looks like more of a, I don't know, yeah, you're saying waterproof material. This one has some sort of texture or graphical element to it. I'm not so worried about you showing us 3 different hand styles or handle styles, although that could have been a nice thing to explore too. 3 different pocket covers. These 2 have buckles. This one doesn't. Maybe show me a different style buckle for one of these. Rendering style looks great. You're emphasizing your edges. I can tell that like this pops out. on both of these just by your shading. So that looks really great, Carly. Overall, nice job with this set of concepts. All right, Luke is up next. Okay, Luke, looking at a bag. This one, first look, your title maybe could be emphasized just a little bit more. Let us know what's on the page, and I'm just going to ask you to double check your image size as well. Yeah, make sure you're doing 17 inches wide, 11 inches high at 150 pixels per inch. Gives you more pixels to play with, so that if you need to enlarge or print big, you can. I noticed that my pen just looks really huge on your canvas. It's my indication that you're working on a smaller canvas size than maybe you should be working on. Next thing, your vignette I think is maybe a little bit big. If I were to adjust it, you don't really need it to, go all the way outside all of these objects. Instead, maybe make it go behind a smaller area of these objects just to tie them together. And you could probably move this guy up a little bit too to be in line with this guy and this guy. All right, so that's just organizational composition stuff. I see you have a couple notes here: snap button, button to hold backpack on. You could probably add a few more notes for changes if you had some more changes on your sketches. Overall, like volumetric shading is nice on all three of these, but the line work looks just a little bit, maybe just a little bit sloppy. This might be good line work to then do another layer and come through here and make sure those lines, are nice and smooth and do what you want them to do. Another thing that might be kind of missing on this set too is give me some indication that this is like some kind of fabric, whether you find an image of fabric and use it as a multiply layer to give this thing some texture, or like add some stitching to show me how this thing might be assembled. Those little details make a big difference, especially in soft goods. Let's take a look at your next one. Okay, like climbing shoes? Yeah, rock climbing shoes. Same thing, canvas size on this one. This one might be a little small. Make sure you're drawing at a high resolution. This one, you are doing some material stuff. I want to see some more of that. I think it really helps. These, it looks like your underlay is pretty dynamic, meaning you've got a view where the shoe's kind of straight or bent in an interesting way. I would find a way to maybe line these up in a more regular pattern, emphasize your title more, just like we said on the last page. In this case, I see that you're kind of messing with the like no laces slip-on. We added a sock here, and this is a strap. But I don't really see any other, I guess pointed toe is a difference, but I'm not seeing too many changes with the heel, or even like the grip area of the sole, or like the side of the sole. I think maybe some more variation here would be nice to see. We only have 3 options. Show me 3 like intriguing options with a few more differences. Rendering style looks really nice. I can tell you're paying attention to like where your light source is coming from the top. These objects look nice and round, so that's good. And your line work actually on this set looks a lot nicer than the other set. It looks more intentional. So nice job, Luke. Okay, let's go to Lauren. Lauren, I wonder if we saw yours in class. Nope, I guess not. Okay, some more bags. Bags are a good thing to look at. So I'm going to peek down at your undersketch and just see. This is something we've talked about a bunch of times, guys, is find a way to like sketch out some of your ideas before you do your final line work. see if it's, can I move it around and see? Yeah, that's cool. It can just be loose. You can focus on location of pockets and stuff. I'm glad you're doing that, Lauren. It shows. Hide it again. And here's your underlay image. Again, this might be something nice to include somewhere on your page, just so that we can see what it is you are redesigning, even if it's small. If you put this in your portfolio as a redesign object, definitely, if not on this page, like put it somewhere in your intro, like, hey, this is the existing bag, these are my variations. All right, so first off, your line work looks great, very clean. I don't see a lot of like errant lines. I guess maybe some of this, like how this puckers in here, maybe could be a little bit more smooth or a little more gestural. But that's just getting picky on line work. Overall, that's nice. I see a handle on one, and maybe it'd be cool to include some other kind of handle here, because this one doesn't have a handle. Give me 3 different options, 3 different ways to open the back, the top of the bag. That's great. This one has a bunch of side pockets. This side is a lot more clean. This one has like a lower pocket. Awesome. Belt strap, no belt strap. So these 3 concepts look very different, and this one even has like some cool features that you're calling out with your notes, so that's nice. Overall, like the volumetric shading on this looks good too. I can tell these are pretty, like soft overall shapes. It might be nice to use, again, if I was going to add just a few little things, I might do a cast shadow layer as a multiply, where I'd go in and like add, like on some of these areas of your bag that maybe overlap the other areas, add in definitely like underneath this detachable fanny pack, and like this looks like it's really hanging over the rest of the bag too. That cast shadow can really help emphasize, like, and maybe even that's like a little bit heavy. I can always turn these down just a little bit, but it'll emphasize that you have like different layers on the same form. Overall, yeah, I think this is a really successful set though. Nice choice of color breakup, and I like the Ava title on here. Now, take a look at the next one. All right, different kind of bag. Okay, I see a vignette. Give me at least like a nice light gray behind there or something. And maybe a little bit of cast shadow underneath each of these bags to anchor it to the ground. Nice notes on some of these things too. Hard shell versus maybe soft. Let's say hard shell here, say soft on the bottom here. 3 different straps, yay. 3 different top openings, good. 3 different side areas, wonderful. I like there are 3 different options on each. I'm not sure why the bottom of this bag is so light. If anything, maybe that would be a little bit darker with just a tiny bit of reflected light off the surface. And in general, I think maybe the top of the bag here, the top of each of these bags could be a little bit lighter than like the front of the bag. Make sure you know where your light source is coming from. And I think overall, we want to get the impression that this is, like this kind of like soft rectangular shape. Your line work looks great. Shading might be just a little bit off here too. And same thing as I mentioned in the last one, a little bit of cast shadow underneath some of these like lips and edges will help delineate between like overlapping parts. It might be nice to see a little bit of like layered texture inside here too, or if you did like, showed me a material swatch and then said, yep, that's what I'm imagining for this. And I've got another cool material that I'm imagining for this guy. Overall, though, I think these are 2 pretty successful sets, And the line work is looking really good. I think it's making sort of the rest of the sketch. Good job, Lauren. All right, Cole. What do we got? Taking on the Yeezy. Cool. So I'm glad you put the original on here. As far as orientation goes, it might be nice to see these 3 shoes all lined up. Or if you don't like the horizontal orientation, maybe line them all up so that they're kind of like 3 in a row this way. Just try and get them in a more regular orientation. It's easier to compare. On this set, it looks like you're showing me you're sort of keeping most of the same geometry here and more exploring like colorways. Although I do think this kind of detail is a cool thing to explore. Yeah, I think in general, at least for this assignment, I appreciate taking things a little bit farther. Like I see that you have laces maybe going down a little bit further in this case. But for the sake of showing me a few other variations, maybe one of these actually has like Velcro instead of laces, or maybe it's just stretchy fabric on this one instead of having laces at all. I see we've got like 1 strap, 2 straps, maybe like 1 strap, 2 strap, and like a different kind of strap that comes up a different way. Other areas you could change to is like maybe where the shoe cuts. Like maybe you do like more of a high top version of this shoe to give me just a little more variation. Overall, your color though, color and texture application is really nice. Yeah. Now for the background stuff, let's see, this page. Try and keep it consistent for each shoe. So like your background kind of looks like these shoes are on the floor with these 2. But this one, it's kind of like riding up behind the shoe as well. I just try and keep that consistent for all 3 of these, and that should help. So overall, I think maybe design concept could have been pushed a little bit further, but your sketch execution is looking pretty good. Next set. Oh, I'm missing a bunch of notes too, Cole. I'd love to see some notes. We'll talk about that on the next one too, about your design decisions. So call out, for example, on these bags, call out that we have like a center strap for more security on the top flap. Or like this, you could say is like some kind of leather, and then to contrast, maybe this one is some sort of like cotton, like woven cotton kind of material, and maybe this one is some third material. Call out some of those things that you're already exploring and put it on the page so it's easy for us to see. The cast shadow that you're adding, like underneath these flaps, I think is doing a really good job of showing that this has multiple layers. Like this flap is actually on top of this pocket. Not quite as effective here with the really soft shadow. The shading on these guys is maybe just a little bit muddy. I think overall, and like we're starting to see the background through some of this color here too. It might be helpful to even, like sometimes I draw an arrow for where I want my light to be coming from, and each one of these surfaces I can kind of shade independently. Like the top of this is probably going to be like lighter. I wonder if I can get in there and do this. Where's the line work for that guy? Okay, so underneath here, it's probably going to be a little bit lighter. Actually, I could probably just dodge and burn your existing layer. You know what? That's fine. You got white. You got this. So it's probably going to be like lighter up top, darker on the bottom. And then if we look at like the main body for this bag, if my light's coming from this side, it might be like lighter on this side and like darker to take this like darker blue and make it darker sort of on the bottom and the side. And I'm just going to go through and kind of shade each layer a little bit more independently. And I think it'll help with the overall like volume of this object. Your bag here is probably going to be a little bit like lighter on the top. Nice away. Around the edges. And probably a little bit darker on the side and the bottom here. You might even have like a little bit of a cast shadow, like you were starting to do on this side, like underneath here, probably even like underneath these straps. And again, I'm going like real quick here. If you can add a little bit more dynamic shading, give this bag just a little bit more, I don't know, volume to it. You might use a little bit of lighter blue around the back side. Here to make that stand off. Oops. Anyway, just add a little bit more contrast overall to your bag, shadow-wise. And definitely some cast shadows under these straps. Intent-wise, though, I see more variation in these concepts. So that's nice too. Like, show me two different handles. Okay, we're going to keep going, Cole. I think you're on the right track. Dropping my pen. All right, Dexter. All right, Dexter. First, line up your backpacks so they are more right in a row. Easy for us to see the differences between these guys. Maybe put this one on top of that one. And then maybe all three of these together, I can move down so they're more in the middle of the page. And in general too, vignette, it's kind of nice to make your objects feel like they're a little more grounded, to keep the vignette from intersecting the bottom of those objects. Maybe something a little bit more like that. You could even put some cast shadow down underneath of these to make them feel like they're sitting on the table or something. Okay, so that's compositional stuff. I'm missing a bunch of notes. It'd be great to see some notes about, like, these are traditional shoulder straps, that's a messenger strap, like flip pocket, zipper pocket, like secondary outer pocket. Why do we have a clip in the front here versus, you know, like nothing in the front on these guys? So give me some notes talking about your design decisions. Another thing I would say, like, choose a more consistent or maybe more dramatic light source. If your light's coming from the top, maybe it's coming from the top this way, then you can actually have like this side of your backpack a little bit darker and like the bottom a little bit darker too, to give us a better overall feel for the volume of these bags, right? That'll make them sort of stand out on the page a little bit more. Your line work has a nice, I guess your line weight is really nice. It might be nice to see a little bit bolder outline around your object. And okay, design intent wise, I guess I am also maybe missing an indication of like the material. Find like a photo online somewhere of a texture and put it as a layer on top of this to give me some texture, or find a swatch and like say, oh yeah, that's the material for that, and then for this like darker gray material, this is what I was thinking. All right, let's take a look at your other sets. This guy. I know I'm going pretty fast. I'm trying to just move through these because we've got a bunch more feedback I can give you on your next assignment too. Okay, shoes. I don't know why all this pattern is still out here. Get rid of that. Erase that. For sure. Same thing. Maybe give me a title on the page, what I'm looking at. Maybe throw the original shoe on here too, so I can see what it is that you've done to change it. Align these shoes in a way that's a little bit more like 3 in a row. And then looking at design intent stuff, it's cool to see like 3 drastic variations on like the same kind of aesthetic here. Sort of a mid-top, a high top, and a sandal. That's cool. Nice addition of some texture. Again, some notes would be great to see, like, are these Velcro? And if this Velcro strap looks this way, maybe this one has like something else going on, like, you know, a different material here, or like a different kind of stitching or something like that. And you've got kind of 3 of the same exact things here. Nice line work. It also would be nice, especially with shoes sitting on the ground, it might be nice to see or to use some sort of, I might put this like behind your shoes, like give me a ground line underneath them, kind of make them feel like they're actually on the page. You could consider this like a cast shadow. So pretty close here. Nice design variation. I think your composition is kind of getting in the way, and I really would like to see some notes. All right, we'll go on to the next, Laura. All right, Laura, we talked about yours a bunch in class. Let's take a look again. So composition-wise, this is great. This is what I'm looking for. Nice regular orientation here. I think your canvas size might be off just a little bit. Image size 11 by 20. Make sure that's 150. A few more pixels for you to play with. A little bit wider, I suppose, is okay. I'm trying to keep everything about the same orientation, just because it prints out very consistently if you do 11 by 17. So you've got another climbing shoe, which is cool. Nice orientation for your shoes. And it looks like you're really playing around with some colors and also some subtle changes in, like, we have this same element on all 3, but one it's continued through, one it kind of ends in a rounded shape behind this part of the shoe, the other one gets cut off a little earlier. Nice subtleties there. It's nice to see, like, hey, that one has a front pole, and this one is just sort of like a regular tongue, some slightly different shape. Yeah, some nice, really subtle variations here. I really appreciate the texture underneath here, the stitching details that you've added. And for subtle variation, I'm glad that you're playing with color as well. I certainly think some of the design elements could have been pushed a little bit further. Maybe change the silhouette of the shoe just a little bit, but because you're messing with color as well, I think it's okay. Overall, Laura, I think your rendering style is awesome. These do look maybe just a little bit flat on the page, and I think one thing we mentioned in class was if there was a way that you could like go in here with a soft brush and just like kind of add a little bit more. Oh man, I'm on completely burn. I don't think I really want burn. More like, or even like, let's try hard light. Come in here. Oops. just to make these feel a little bit rounder. I think that would help. Obviously that doesn't need to be dark. I mean light like that. And I guess you could just let that bleed. Probably around the back here. So it'd still be kind of light bouncing around the back. Maybe some light, bouncing around the toe, in front of the toe. Again, that's like really quick, but it might be enough to kind of add some more dimensionality to your sketches overall. Of course, you want to come back through here and like work out some of these edges a little bit too. Like that might still have, and that's pretty light here, but that probably still has a highlight like on that edge, on the top of that edge there. Alright, I think you get the idea though, kind of what I'm talking about. You're doing really well though. See if you can make it a little more dynamic. Let's look at your next step. No. Nice notes, by the way. I appreciate that. Okay, some bags. Need your backpack. Your colors on this are pretty dark. I think maybe you could lighten up your background just a little bit more. Personal preference. On this one, the variations that you have made are really nice. Changing the shape of this flap. This one has a zipper on it. This one, the strap comes all the way down. That's great. I like that you're looking at some of these details, like the buckle. I think that could be detail that you push just a little bit further, or like the zipper. Those are really important details. Touch points even for these bags. Might be nice to see a little bit of cast shadow or drop shadow underneath each of these to make it sit on your page a little bit more. And then I think same goes for this set. I mean, like really nice job rendering. But I think you could add a little bit more, I guess, emotion to this page with a little bit more dramatic shadows. So like if you had, again, if you did a layer that was focusing on cast shadow underneath here. Oops, made that so. Just a little bit bigger. So like underneath the lip of each of these could probably be even darker than you currently have it. Don't be afraid to go dark on your shadows. You probably use a little bit of that cast shadow underneath, and like underneath there. Might be a little bit different here. You might add it underneath the strap as well. And like through and erase on top of the strap. Add just a little bit more dimension to these guys. Strap 2, I think, could have been a nice detail worth exploring a little bit further. But overall, I think what you do have executed is at a very high level. So nice job, Laura. Next, we have Mitch. Pillow heads. Oh, the ostrich thing. Yeah. Cool. Nice job keeping your reference on the board so we know what it is we're redesigning, and I'm glad you kept the human in here too. Overall, let's see, where's your line work? It looks like maybe your line work was getting covered up a bit by, yeah, everything's merged right now, but your line should stay on top of your shading, because it looks like it's getting a little bit muddy when your shading goes on top of your like nice dark line work on the outside. So just try that for the next one. I like the pillow, nice vignette. Another thing that looks like, I guess your line work looks maybe just a little bit muddy too. Change that to 150 on your resolution, that might help. And I'm not sure what like pen you're using, but it looks like we've got some like really abrupt ends and beginnings to some of your lines. If you use this like design pencil, oh, and I'm in like a light gray here, it has a little bit more, I don't know, you can get a little bit more dynamic with your lines. Like it'll get really thick here. If you draw over a couple times, it'll stay nice and thin. I'd say maybe the next thing for you to try working on is doing some more dynamic line work, changing the thickness, a little bit thicker in areas that get like crunched together, thinner around like nice, really obvious shapes. Heavier around the outline, a little bit lighter, like this line probably doesn't need to be quite as heavy because it's just a subtle change in surface, rather than like this line needs to be nice and dark because it's the outline. So some line work stuff. Overall, we've got nice smooth curve, cushioned with like it almost looks like a viewport. Sleep-friendly colors, sure. Maybe call out like the pattern or why this is a different shape. Add a few more notes to explain your design intent. Let's take a look at your next one, Mitch. Bibs, okay. Again, I like the human scale here. Your sketches are maybe a little bit small. It'd be nice to see this design concept, a little bit larger, so we can kind of check out, and you have more space to work out some of the details, rather than just a little thumbnail. So you have a couple under sketches here too, but I'm not sure that these ideas are resolved to like a very, very high level. I guess maybe a high enough level. Like this being Velcro, that's great, but I don't really see like how that strap connects to the main body here. Could be just that this is overall just kind of a really small sketch. This tie down, like I see that it's kind of an orange triangle shape, but maybe you can add some sort of indication of like what material this is. Give me a swatch or something like that. Yeah, it'd be nice to see like the attach points for each of these two. So like there are some nice details here, like you see this rope and like the edge where the rope meets this silicone, it looks like maybe. It'd be nice to see those details in your thumbnails too. So I think this could be pushed a little bit further, probably in both of these, just to show me a little bit larger, a few more details on your design intent. And maybe a few more notes too. I like that you're sort of calling out what each of these concepts are, but as this is a sketch page, it'd be cool to see these more as like, a note calling out a specific detail on your sketch. All right, we're on to tie. All right, Ty, we looked at yours as well. It'd be great to see the original shoe somewhere on here. There we go. See if I can move it. Where is it? Oh, it's like super turned down. So you are redesigning kind of an icon. It'd be great to see like where you started. Give me a title on the page, so we know that this is like a Nike whatever shoe redesign. And then, man, like really nice line work and rendering style on this. All of your surfaces look like they're communicating very nicely. These edge highlights show me that like this probably like soft, it could be leather, some sort of soft material sitting on top of this like woven or perforated material. Yeah, that's really nice. Really nice exploration too on each of the different areas of the shoe. You know, the rear is completely different on each. I like that you're messing with sort of how the sole edge, if that's even the right name for it, kind of comes up and these details transition across. Even like how it wraps around the toe here, doesn't so much here. You've got different indication of like grip on the bottom of the shoe. I guess one thing that could be made a little bit more exaggerated would be some of the like cast shadow to give this just a tad more dimensionality underneath. Like maybe some of these laces show me. And maybe even underneath some of these areas that are like, because your light's kind of coming from the top, you can kind of add a little bit more shadow underneath those areas of your shoe that are kind of on top of this under area. You've got the right highlights. Give me just a little bit of shadow underneath here. This, especially this strap, it looks like it's going over two different sets of material. Like that difference there is kind of a key difference to call out. Same with the top. Underneath here. But yeah, I mean, that's getting really nitpicky. So nice shadow underneath these. Overall, like this is an awesome set tie. Nice job. Notes and title. Bags, cool. All right, nice arrangement here. Give me a title, and once again, give me some notes. Talk about like. Like that's a hard shell, and that's like some kind of leather that you found. This is some other kind of like plastic wrap, and that's sort of a different material. This has a handle attached to the top here this way. This one's integrated into the straps. Again, they are details that are in your sketch, but those are appropriate things to call out as well. As notes, because it just shows you that you're sort of thinking about those are intentional things that you're thinking about. Calling them out just draws more attention to it. That's obvious. Again, like rendering style, I think you totally get it. I would say like it looks like your light source is coming kind of like top and center, or top and slightly from the left side. On this one, I kind of think maybe this surface that comes down and through, like this area of it should be a little bit lighter than this area of it. Maybe your shading is backwards on just that surface, but like this looks great. Yeah, this looks pretty good too. One other detail that you could add as well is like some indication of like the texture, the material type. So like if this is supposed to be leather, either find some leather online, a picture of leather, and import it as like a overlay or hard light layer to put that texture in place, or you can like put that in a swatch and then say, yep, that's what I want for that. And I found this like cool gray jersey material for this. Give me some more indication there. But overall, this is another really strong set. So nice job, Ty. All right, 3 more. We got Eunice, got Liam, and Tessa. Okay, Eunice. I appreciate the attention you put into your overall composition here. Nice arrangement, good detail. It might be nice to see the original shoe, if you had an original shoe to show. You don't need to see all 3 necessarily, but like, give me one of those. Like, that's what you're redesigning. That's where the bar is. And it kind of frames your, just put one like right there. Frames your exploration, and hopefully these concepts are cooler than this one. Okay, so straight taper, color accent, color gradients, upward taper. Those are cool things to call out. I guess I am kind of missing some of the potential material selections on your color breakups. It'd be great if you could find a photo of one of those textures and import it on a separate layer as an overlay or something to add it to these concepts. Or throw it in a swatch. Like, show me a couple swatches here for like the blue, white, and gray materials. That would be a great way to kind of give me a little bit more information about these concepts. Nice shading style. These look pretty efficient, and glad you tried the dark outline around these too. I don't know why there's like a light edge around the dark outline. Maybe that's just like a cutout kind of thing. It would also be nice, because shoes, you know, stitching is a really important thing. It'd be kind of cool to see on some of these, like, what are your ideas about stitching? Did you think about like how does the stitching go up this way? Is it like a double stitch, or is there like a cool detail with the stitching? That's like one more design element that you have a chance to play with on these shoes, and you should definitely play with it. All right, let's look at the next set. Oh, right, we looked at these also in class, and I know you have another set on top of this that took it even further. So one of the things we talked about was, again, kind of higher level. There were a couple of things. One, like, find a way to get a leg in here somewhere, either just as like an outline or kind of show like what it is we're kind of looking at. I can tell that this is like a shin and knee guard, but it'd be nice to see that scale, that context. Second thing we talked about were like some of these little blingy areas. Bling is cool, but maybe this is a little bit overboard. This looks appropriate and nice. This is maybe just a little too far. Overall, your shading is really showing me like which components are on top of other components. That's nice. We did talk about maybe emphasizing that a little bit more with some like a drop shadow or cast shadow underneath these straps, like maybe underneath here. I don't know why I'm drawing in white. I can actually do it in the color so you can see what I'm talking about. Let's do a multiply layer, and like that could be shaded under here, under here, under here, probably a little bit more even behind and underneath some of these plastic layers. Just to give it a little bit more dimensionality, if that's even a word. And the other thing we talked about was, again, this is much higher level stuff. Like, why are you using these shapes and colors? So yellow in this case indicates what? Is it a specific material? Is it a place where you would like touch with your hand? I don't know. Like, is this yellow for the same reason that this appears yellow? Where are your shapes coming from? POC has a really specific set of like shapes and colors. And I know your next set actually showed me some of that. So actually, do you even have that in here? I thought I had that. Yeah, there's your next set. That I think was a little bit closer still. Like you took a lot of the feedback here with your drop shadow. That's awesome. Or like cast shadow around the edges here. That's great. A little bit finer detail. Looks a little bit tighter, not quite as loose as the other one. Sort of the same thing here too. So like red, accent, what is that actually indicating? This makes sense to me because it's kind of like the joint, and you said this is like the original POC. Like that is a flexible area. Here, red, you know, is it red for a reason? I don't know. It might be cool to see like how these straps, do they come apart? Are they always together? Maybe show one like halfway undone. I don't know. But anyway, so you and I talked about this quite a bit more outside of, or in class. Overall, like really nice job though, Eunice. Notes, add notes. Liam. Second to last. How are we doing on time? It's already been an hour and 17 minutes. Okay, so we got some more shoes, and it looks like that's the original shoe, which again is kind of nice to have somewhere on the page so we can see what it was you were redesigning. It'd be great if you lined up your shoes in a more regular order. We talked about that kind of in class. Give me a title somewhere on this page, like Nike shoe redesign, and then you definitely need some notes. So you've got 3 very different shoes here, but talk to me about like material. Talk to me about what these different soles are for. Talk to me about like this are cotton laces, leather strap laces, not laces at all. It's some other crazy attachment method. You know, actually put some notes on the page about your thinking process here. Nice shading on this. You have like a core shadow kind of running through the middle here, sort of highlight in this bottom area, kind of coming off the ground, highlight here from a light source. Use the same light source for these guys. I mean, it'd be just as dynamic. You know, this should have similar like highlight area, core shadow, maybe light bouncing around from the ground. Yeah, definitely use that as a reference. Yeah, nice detail changes on this though. One other thing that might be nice to add underneath would be some sort of cast shadow underneath your shoes to ground it, to ground them. Anyway. Yeah, overall, I think this is pretty nice execution, Liam. I like that you started to do some highlights on the edges of this like this leather. Maybe same detail on some of the edges of these other pieces of fabric. And I like that you're starting to add some details about the stitching as well. They're probably stitching on this guy. Let's see that too. All right, what's your other one? Bags. All right, line these suckers up too. give me a title, give me some notes, talking about your different design decisions here. And I think maybe your shading, like your light source is a little bit more ambiguous on this set. And like your line work actually somehow made it underneath your shading on this bag in particular. Definitely keep it on top. But call out some of these cool decisions that you've made. Like we have a back pocket into like slide-in pockets for, I don't know, pencils or something. This one has a cool like button snap clasp. This one has two different, I don't know, buckles of some kind. Like call that stuff out because you're thinking about it. That's good. I see one handle. Give me another handle. Give me two other versions of that handle. That's a good thing to play with. And you're using this sort of like dark, almost black color here, which is cool. But I think that maybe some like texture would help make these concepts even further different, and probably some like highlights on some of the edges of your material are going to help it sort of like stand out from what's underneath here. So like this top edge would probably have a highlight. The top edge on each of these would probably have a highlight. Same like the edge of this zipper would probably have a highlight going all the way around. These could probably be a little bit larger too on the page. So I think you're going the right direction. Your design intent is getting there, but got to work on the shading style. Try and pick a single light source. All right, Tessa, last but not least. All right, got some bags. Show me the original bag somewhere on the page, because that would be cool to see like where you started. Definitely give me a title, like this is the Tessa bag redesign. And add some notes. So I've been saying this to actually a lot of people here, but like call out some of these cool design decisions. You have 3 different handles. Tell me about that. Is that a rope? That's like punched out of the material. This one might be like some kind of nylon or something. Call those things out. This one's got like these cool buckles. Tell me about that. This one's got like a mesh bag. Tell me about that. This one is maybe like a fabric bag. Tell me about that. This one has like a cool, I don't know, like iPad pocket. This one does too. Maybe like show me some stitching or something on the top. Excuse me. I like that you're thinking about brand placement. Tell me about that. So just call out some of your design decisions. Cool. Overall, like I like that you're exploring color, some really different pocket arrangements. That's nice to see. I do think like this design in particular seems kind of flat on the page. I see you've changed a bunch of the color, but it'd be great to see some shading on top of that. That gives me a little bit better indication of like the overall volume of this object. So like if my light source is sort of coming from the front top over here, like probably that's all going to be a little bit darker. Definitely like the inside of this is all going to be kind of in shadow behind the bag before it lightens up on the outside. And then we might have like the top of it's probably going to be a little bit lighter. This area of the bag is probably going to be a little bit lighter too. You might have some light bouncing around the bottom of the bag, but overall, just like give me a little bit more dimensionality to the bag. And that was really quick. It's probably fine for what you need for this. I'm doing a hard light layer at the moment, so it lets me add like black or like dark and light sort of on the same layer. Yeah, this is probably going to be a little bit darker. anyway, that's kind of what I'm getting at for this too. Edges as well, I think you probably want to keep kind of light, meaning like these are different pieces of fabric. So if you can show a highlight on like this edge of the fabric, it'll show it's sort of on a different layer than this blue. And like these might even have edges on them as well. Just little things that can help give this a little more dimensionality. Okay, next page. Nice design directions though, Tessa. Good exploration. So this looks like some kind of bag. Give me a title. Show me the original bag. And so these shapes are very organic. I think they're borderline, like starting to get a little bit blobby with the perspective. I'm not sure like if this shape here is supposed to be, oh man, like reflected on this side. They kind of don't look like they're exactly the same shape. Got to be careful with that. One thing that can help define a more organic shape is show me a little bit of the like contour going around some of these edges so that you can kind of define these surfaces more intentionally. I mean, the ideas are kind of diverse, and that's nice. Like zipper on the front here, that would be a cool thing to call out. Finger handle, that I'm not entirely sure what that is, but explain it to me. Nice addition of material, that's a great indication. I would try and maybe emphasize your edges a little bit more with either like a little bit of a highlight to the top of these materials, so it looks like it's sort of sitting on top of the other one. Another way that you can do that is like add some stitching too. Like this might actually have some like cool stitching pattern, or you can actually do some cool like design elements just with stitching. It's a nice little detail, and yeah, you should be thinking about those details too. Scale is another thing that'd be nice to see here. These bags, I have no idea how big they are. Maybe show like an envelope or something sticking out of the top of one of these, so I have some sort of scale, or like a finger or hand or something like that grabbing onto one of these, just so I can see like, oh yeah, that's a nice big handbag, or no, it's just a tiny clutch or something. Wow, I know what a clutch is, maybe. So anyway, off to a good start, Tessa, and I appreciate the diversity in concepts that you're exploring. Okay, so that's it for assignment 19. Overall, nice job, guys, using your photo underlays. Definitely try and add some notes to your concepts. Try and pick a light source that is clear and emphasizes your object in the best light. And pay attention to design details like stitching and material, especially for soft goods. Those are really important things.